In an effort to bridge the digital divide, the FCC releases its 2019 Broadband Deployment Report showing big gains in expanding connectivity. However, the numbers could be based on some faulty data. Well, joining us now is Zach Sakanik. He's with the Connect Americans Now. Zach, thanks for taking the time to chat with us today. Speak to the faulty data that this report seems to be based on.
Sure. The latest FCC report indicates that the digital divide has dropped from about 24 million Americans to 21 million Americans, which indicates some real positive movement. Unfortunately, those FCC reports are based on self-reported data from internet service providers centered around a specific federal form that asks, could you provide internet in this census block area? And the problem with those two parts of the question are that could and do provide are two different things. And sometimes census blocks can be as large or larger than the state of Connecticut. So in rural communities where a lot of folks are still struggling to get online, you might have one neighbor who has internet and another neighbor many, many, many miles away who does not. But from the federal government's perspective, they're all connected.
Zach, Microsoft's new rural broadband data shows a large gap, of course, between what the FCC is reporting and what's happening on the ground. Tell us about that, if you would.
Absolutely. According to the FCC, less than 10% of Americans still don't have access to high-speed broadband quality internet. But if you look at self-reported data from American surveys by the Pew folks or actual internet usage data from Microsoft, it looks like that number is closer to 49 or 65% of Americans. And so what you have is this huge gap between what the government thinks and what people are actually experiencing on the ground in rural communities.
So, Zach, what are the implications of inaccurate broadband data? What could it mean for rural America?
Well, rural broadband access has become a huge priority in Washington. Folks on both sides of the aisle are rallying around solutions to finally solve this problem. But as we allocate those resources and try to connect people with new infrastructure, we have to know where people are connected and where people aren't connected. And the answer to that simple question allows us to more efficiently put out those resources and get the most bang for our buck out of public and private dollars.
So what are you calling on as we move forward?
Well, the FCC has an open rulemaking process. They're taking comments and input from all sorts of people, trying to figure out the best way to move forward and make their data more accurate and more reflective of rural communities especially. And so we're asking them to do just that, finish that rulemaking process, change that form that asks, could you provide internet, to do you provide internet? And then include other data points like actual internet usage data to create a more holistic picture of what's happening on the ground.
All right, Zach, thank you very much for your insight this morning. Again, Zach Sakanik, he's with Connect Americans Now, joining us from our Washington, D.C. News Bureau. Well, Canada appeals the World Trade Organization's